Great, thank you. Caitlin Horsley, as Jessica mentioned. Thank you, Jess. And I'm going to start out here with bucking the system a little bit with a little participation. I want everybody to stand up and stretch a little. I know I needed to stand up. I highly recommend this like twisting motion. It's helpful. Maybe some hands over the head, millennial move. Yeah, whatever feels good to you right now. It's not sustainable to sit still for too long. Alrighty, so you can sit down, stay standing, whatever you'd like. Thank you for doing that with me. I feel better, hopefully you do too. So, okay, I can't move around, I guess. I need to stay here. As I said, Caitlin Horsley, I'm Senior Manager of ESG at F5. We're a cybersecurity firm. We do hardware and software. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But before I get into this presentation, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about me and how I got here. As Jess mentioned, 15 years doing this work, which ages me a bit, but that's okay. And when I started out, I was actually in AmeriCorps. I decided that I wanted to do a volunteer stint coming out of college with my economics degree because I really cared about the social side of economics, sort of who wasn't being counted into these models, who was not being accounted for, and how we could build more resilient businesses. So I worked for the city of Portland, and I did an economic opportunity initiative program. I was involved in that, and we actually started out with some awesome stakeholder engagement, which has been mentioned already this morning many times, and asked the micro enterprises or small low-income businesses that I was working with what they would like from my year of service. They said a sustainable business program. I had zero sustainable business experience. So I had a year, that's a typical AmeriCorps volunteer term, to figure out, one, what the heck is that, put together a toolkit, put together a program to help these businesses. Fast forward a year, we were able to create a really cool program. We partnered with Portland State University. We partnered with multiple of the businesses to do audits and give them a certification of sorts that said, you know, this is a sustainable business. And a lot of it was built off of things they were already doing. I mean, I was going into in-home daycares and seeing how they cleaned with vinegar instead of toxic chemicals, right? And it really blew my mind. And I walked out of that year and thought, you know, I think sustainability might actually be the way to build more resilient businesses. So I tell that story to say that was 15 years ago. I still wholeheartedly believe that. Now I just have a little more experience and have been through the ringer a few more times. So with that, I'll jump into my presentation around really embedding ESG as a core business discipline for long-term resilience. A little bit of an agenda because I got to set the scene for the day or for the time. I'll talk again about establishing ESG as a fundamental business process. I'll also talk about at F5, our approach. I'm going to use the materiality assessment as an example. So who here has done or will be doing a materiality assessment? Sweet. Okay. Who's excited about it? I got a few. Cool. Okay. I can't promise that I'll make you more excited about it, but what I want to do is give you something really tangible that you can implement with your materiality assessment in the future or your results from the past or your future materiality assessment, because we're all going to have to do one, that will make it have more of an impact, that take you from just compliance and check the box more into a long-term embedded ESG in your business or organization standpoint. And then lastly, that's really just more of the impact that we can have here is around promoting that organizational support that you'll need while also enhancing climate risk assessment and ESG disclosures. And as I read that, I feel like that's kind of a tall order, but I promise you, I really can show you how that can help. So as I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about F5. Again, we're a tech company. We are very, very interested in AI. I think I told someone yesterday, every employee has a mandate to be looking at AI and how we can utilize it in our job. And obviously AI has a large environmental impact, so we're also thinking about that as an ESG team. Luckily, we have an ESG team of 10, which is very helpful, and I think is also another testament to how committed F5 is to ESG. On the right here, you see a little bit of how we kind of weave these narratives together around what F5 does and how we see ESG complementing that. And what it doesn't say here is that F5's mission is to do the right thing. So when you talk about having things embedded at the highest level, we really have been able to make some big progress here with good leadership, good support across the business, great communications, very important, to get to a place where we have it at the highest levels, but we also need to continue maturing it through our projects, processes, and integration. So I'll go over this quickly, some of the things that we do in order to align our ESG business strategy with stakeholder expectations. So I think it was also mentioned that, you know, when you're thinking about, say, your ESG report, what do your stakeholders actually want? If you go take a look at F5's ESG report, I've produced the last 3, so you can come to me if you're pissed and you think it doesn't look good, but it's short. It's not long. We're doing it for our investors. They are our #1 primary stakeholder for our reports. That's who we make it for. We give them what they want, and we're done. That doesn't mean it doesn't still take a really long time, but you've got to make sure that you're aligning those stakeholder expectations to what you're doing. So in addition to that, you know, internally, as we take those external stakeholder expectations, we try to embed ESG with business strategies. So an example of that is all of our ESG goals level up to an F5 promise, is what they call it, as part of our strategic structure, which I do have my MBA. I got it so I could better speak sustainability to people across the business. And you know that everybody has their different strategic language. That's ours, to our promises. But not just our team's goals, all of our individual goals line up to F5's promises. And that's to make sure that we are really staying tight to what the company wants to drive, because I believe that's one of the best ways to make sure that your work is seen as important if it aligns with those. Again, active stakeholder engagement, it's been mentioned multiple times today, but I think also just really keeping in mind from this corporate perspective that that's both internal and external. So don't ignore your internal stakeholders that you may not always work with. And then making sure things are measurable. So obviously, you know, when we talk about a climate target, SBTI, that's easy, but how can you make sure that your initiatives are measurable and you're getting to the outcomes that you are looking for? And I think this process today that we'll go over with the materiality assessment as the example is one way that you can make things a little more measurable, a little more trackable, and aligned. So if you're not familiar with materiality assessments, or up there I put double materiality assessments, and I'll touch on that in a moment, I'll go over, you know, from a high level, it includes, again, stakeholder engagement and really nice benchmarking also. It includes a data analysis phase. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, and then that flows into a prioritization process to really bring your priority ESG issues to the top. And those are meant to be what you can build your strategy on, right? What you can communicate you're doing, because it's most important specifically to your business, not just everyone overall. It's not just greenhouse gas emissions for all. It's what's most important to your business individually. Now, I promised I'd come back to the double. I've been a part of or led 4 materiality assessments. This last one, when we were in the process of doing it, CSRD came out with their double materiality requirement or guidance. You know, we didn't have a timeline yet, and we said, okay, I guess we're going to turn this into a double materiality assessment. What was so helpful that we didn't know at the time was we had already engaged some of our finance, accounting, internal audit coworkers in this project. So we have quarterly check-ins with them, which is already a wonderful thing we have. We have strong governance for ESG at F5. We report to the board, the nominating and ESG committee. We've really been able to put that strong governance into place, largely in part back to the beginning where I showed you how F5 really prioritizes ESG. But the double piece, right, then we were bringing in finance. And it was daunting, right? Materiality, just the definition of it is different for ESG impact and finance. But having them there, we asked, would you engage in this project? They ended up sending 2 individuals from internal audit, which I know sounds very nerve-wracking, but when they're not coming to you, you're asking them to come, it's way better. And they're really helpful. They're like advisors. So they ended up sending 2 individuals from their team to every weekly meeting of ours. So when we switched into double materiality, we were able to line up all of our definitions, our risk thresholds to what the company is already using. And as you all know, that makes it so much easier to communicate the outcomes, to integrate the outcomes. And we'll talk about how we did that in a little bit. Also, this cross-functional collaboration, really led to just a much better ability for us to compile and validate the data for the materiality assessment, but you're also building those relationships so that you can do it from there on. And it ended up impacting multiple. We have DEI within our group as well. It impacted our ability to validate our DEI data and figure out what processes and put controls in place, which is not usually ESG professional language, right? It's their language. So bring them in because they can help you. It sounds scary, but it's not as bad as you think. And also joint review. So again, I'm sure something most of you are familiar with, but if you're having these internal stakeholders reviewing as you go, which is part of a materiality assessment. I mean, you're bringing up issues, you're saying what really is important here. They're involved in every step of that process. What does that do at the end? I mean, multiple benefits, but it also makes it much more credible. We talked about credibility yesterday, that you can go to your leadership team, or we ultimately take our DMA to the board, and as they're asking questions, we can show who was involved in this process, and we've got their buy-in and support, which is huge. And we changed multiple things because of their feedback. It's important feedback. And last but certainly not least, I promised you that this would help you with your financial reporting, and it can. We've also built these relationships, de-risked this information, gotten it approved by financial reporting, accounting, internal audit, so that when we get to that place where we're putting our content into the 10K, into our proxy statement, we already have maybe even a statement ready to go. If you've ever been through the reviews for those, it's even worse than the ESG report. So having those things ready to go are huge, and then of course your ESG disclosures as well. So here's where I get into I wanted to give like a high level of how I think about this. So from each of these pieces underneath it, so I've got the double materiality assessment, and underneath it, I've got sort of your compliance, but also what's this other thing you're getting by just adding this in to something that you already have to do. So we've got our priority ESG issues that come out of our double materiality assessment. And then we've also got this cross-functional buy-in. Well, in our case, what that led to was getting participation in our enterprise risk assessment. Again, not a super fun process, but ESG should definitely be involved in that process, and it helps you make the case for so many other things, investment requests, et cetera, because climate change is a risk for every single company. You should be on the risk assessment, the risk register. There's no doubt. They score it by likelihood is one of the scoring. We're 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 for climate change. So we should be included in that. And that's what it ended up doing for ESG is we were able to get our top 2 risks, I believe, we got into the enterprise risk assessment. Speaking of WRI's presentation, one of them was around energy reduction or greenhouse gas emissions reduction by way of procuring energy. And then that even rolled into our reporting and disclosures. So as I mentioned, you've got financial reporting included in this, you've got something ready to go, and then of course your ESG reporting, not just your CSRD required DMA. I'm sorry, so many acronyms, but I think I'm safe here. I think all of you know what they are. Feel free to join my roundtable if you want to ask. But also in your, your ESG reporting for CDP, so to say. So we were able to pull things that came out of this process where we worked so closely with finance and accounting into our CDP disclosure, into our TCFD table. So it just really, I mean, you can tell I get excited about this. The positive, the upside of having this really close partnership was so helpful and continues to be. I mean, we really have this credibility and relationship built up that's huge. So in conclusion, just high level, ESG is a core discipline. I think you all know how important that is. Easier said than done, but still really important. And, to stay on that one for a little bit longer, I think over these 15-ish years of doing this work, we've seen the ebbs and flows. We've seen the pendulum swing back and forth to where we have lots of support and regulatory stick, back to not a lot of support and trying to, go back to this building relationships throughout the business. I think that one is really the one that's most important, and I think that's sort of a theme that's been happening between yesterday and today. And I also think that's sustainability professionals' superpower. I mean, we care. We're here to talk to people. We're human-centered people. So maybe that's putting my hat on for hope today, is that this is what we're here to do. We can do it. Let's keep doing it. Regulation will come and go. It will continue to do that, guaranteed. Materiality assessments, we talked about how, we utilize this really rigorous assessment process in order to drive informed decision-making that includes ESG topics, and internal partnerships, internal stakeholder engagement, incredibly important. So before I hand it back over to Jess, I'll just say, please come join me at my roundtable if you have questions, but also if you have examples of things you're doing or you want to troubleshoot some relationship like this, I love doing that. Like I said, I got my MBA so I could understand business better and really embed sustainability. So let's dive in. And I really do believe that processes like this, although it might not sound super sexy, are the ways that we can really make the impact that we want to make, whether it be from in a company or as a consultant with our clients. So I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.